Hey, welcome to my Jeannie Bottle and welcome to a layout share. So I made this layout over the past week. I worked on it off and on and I'm really pleased with how it turned out. But my journaling for this turned into an essay. And so I'm going to read it to you. And then I'll explain what the deal is and what's going on. I have it printed here. I'm going to take a seat and I'm going to try to read this to you. Lady Sandra, when my grandmother Nana passed away 19 years ago on Valentine's Day, I was deeply grateful to inherit some of her things, which held special significance in her life and in her heart. It hurt to say goodbye to someone I love so much, and the loss of my grandfather a little less than a year before intensified my grief. Nana was a prize, loving, remarkable, and extraordinary, an amazing mother and grandmother, a force to be reckoned with, and a woman of high intellect, high standards, and high talent. She possessed a big, generous heart, and she brought so much to our family table. She had been an only child, and the heavy burden of caring for her invalid mother had fallen mostly on her shoulders since she was a young girl, because her father's business often took him away from home for extended periods. She had never complained and had cheerfully executed her duties at home and at school. Her years of hard study and top grades paid off, and after graduating from high school, she went off to the University of Maine, where she excelled even more, and her brilliance shined. She was a member of Alpha Omicron Pi sorority, Phi Beta Kappa, and Phi Kappa Phi honorary societies. After completing a year of graduate study at the University of Maine the following year, she married my grandfather, who had swept her off her feet at college where they had met. Soon she was glowing in her new roles as a wife and the mother of a little girl and boy, and after successfully raising them, she luxuriated in her role as a doting grandmother to her 5 grandchildren. As her granddaughter, I felt her love and devotion keenly, and I savored our bond. I adored her. Following her funeral on a dismal February day, a replica of the grief-stricken one we had endured with the passing of my grandfather the year before, my family and I were tearfully going through the ordeal of sorting through my grandparents' lifetime of possessions. As each of us sat in the living room, stricken, and sifting through our mournful piles, my mother asked me if there were anything special of Nana's that I would like to have. I hadn't anticipated the question, but without hesitation, I got up and walked straight to the bookshelf where I located and carefully slid Nana's cherished copy of Kenneth Roberts' Rabble in Arms from its place. Knowing it to be one of her all-time favorite books, a fragile old edition which had occupied an ever-constant place on her shelf, I cradled it like a baby bird as I turned to my mother to ask if I could have it. She immediately agreed that I could, and when she asked if there were anything else I'd like to have, I told her I'd love to have some of Nana's journals, which I had seen her writing in since I was a little girl, and which I spotted in one of the sad piles. Nana and I had shared the same unfaltering internal clock, which meant we were up hours before the rest of the family and could be found at 5 a.m., seated at the kitchen table, me happily eating a warm bowl of cream of wheat she'd made for me, and Nana sitting in her robe, sipping her coffee and writing in her journal, focused and content. I wasn't sure what she documented in her diary so faithfully, but I knew she included information about the weather, as she'd often glance at the huge thermometer that was stuck in a place of prominence on an outside wall that was visible through the window from her place at the kitchen table. For some reason, which none of us ever really figured out, she loved to assiduously track the weather, and no one could or would dispute the details of days gone by, for Nana had a running record of it all, snow flurries to downpours, blazing sun to thunderstorms. She noted humidity levels, cloud levels, wind levels, and sun levels. I wasn't sure what else was in her journals other than weather reports, but I knew as I looked through the stack of them that I wanted them. And so I chose half, the years from 1974 to 1984, and set aside the others from 1985 to 1995 for my cousin. I was so grateful for my mother's generosity and for her pleasure in sharing her inheritance with me. When asked if there were anything else I'd like to have, I made my final selection. The Lady in Green. She was a Royal Dalton figurine, made in England of bone china and inscribed with the name Sandra on the bottom. Many times through the years, my admiring gaze would rest on her, drinking in her regal presence and loveliness. I felt it was almost too much to ask if I could have her, but my mother quickly agreed. Lady Sandra was the perfect representation of Nana to me, class and elegance. This English lass stood almost 8 inches tall and was dressed in a hat and gown of spring green with touches of gold, Nana's favorite color combination. This mix of colors flowed throughout her home, appearing in green velvet on pillows and lush vines that embraced yellow blooms on bedding, in gold swirls arching up curtains at the windows, and green matted artwork framed in gold on the walls. Even the hard cover of Rabble in Arms was wrapped in a deep jade cloth. This ornamental lady from the UK wore the combination beautifully and stood out on the white shelves in perfect accordance with Nana's palette. I couldn't believe my fortune. Lady Sandra, my grandmother's journals, and her favorite book, all a special part of Nana, now belonged to me. I hugged my mother and thanked her with a radiant heart and have cherished these treasures all these years since they've come into my care. It is nearly incomprehensible to me that it is 2024 and I've now lived 19 years without Nana in my life. It's hard to fathom that instead of the pain of her loss diminishing over time, it has grown into a nearly palpable void. I feel the if-onlys stronger than ever before. If only I could have her here again and tell her all the ways her life has impacted mine, and tell her thank you. If only I could share all the things that have happened in my life since she's been gone. If only she could see the beautiful men my sons have become, to see my oldest, Michael, following his musical dream in Nashville, and to see what awesome husbands and fathers Scott and Matthew are. If only she could know their lovely wives, and how thrilled she would be to know she has 6 great-great-grandchildren, 3 of whom are triplet girls and 1 of whom shares her name, Nora. She would love to know that I often speak of her to them, about her brilliance, her passion for literature, her love of England, and any morsel I know they'd love for me to share. I can just imagine her eyes filling with tears if she knew that when I read her favorite poem, Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening, to my granddaughters, it had moved Charlotte to tears. She would be touched to know that one of my most visited memories of her is when, upon special request and strong urging from her family, she would sit down at her piano, apron still in place at her waist, and dominate the instrument with the most masterful rendition of the Irish washerwoman any of us has ever heard. What precious memories! I can still see her antique, crystal-draped candlesticks, which normally stood sensibly on top of her piano, rocking like shimmering gypsies to the music as we gathered in a smiling circle around her, clapping along and watching her performance with awe. Nana, a lifetime lover of dancing who had taken me to see the New York City Ballet many times, would love to know that when I'm with my granddaughters, I play the Irish washerwoman for them while they dance around the room, laughing and jigging with joy in their hearts. There are also smaller events I wish I could share with her. I would like to tell her I just finished reading her cherished book, Rabble in Arms, that I love it too, that it now occupies a special place in my heart as it did in hers, and that it is a focal point on my bookshelves, like it was on hers for so many years. I know that her English major soul would have loved to know that I highlighted more sentences on the pages than I left bare. I also know she would be tickled that since finishing the book, I've resolved to return to Lake Champlain and Fort Ticonderoga with new insight and fresh perspective, and that I'm enthused to venture to other key places that featured heavily in the book. I know Nana would be deeply moved to know that I asked for her journals, and that I frequently pore over them all these years later, relishing each word and eager to know her better. If only I could tell her how much I admire her. The other day, as I looked at Lady Sandra, where she now stands in elegance on my dresser, I wondered how this lovely figure in green had come to be in Nana's life. If only I could know a little more about my inherited treasure, where and when Nana had gotten her, and for what occasion. Had she purchased her during one of her many trips to her beloved England? If only I could have Nana back to ask her these kinds of things. Suddenly, her journals popped into my mind. Would Lady Sandra be inside one of them? Excitement began to dawn. I looked her up on the internet and found that she was produced from 1983 to 1992. I only had 2 of Nana's journals covering those dates, 1983 and 1984. What were the chances that she had gotten her during one of those 2 years and that she had written about her in these journals? I picked up the one from 1984 and settled in to read it with my glasses perched on my nose and a steaming cup of coffee in my hand. With hope pulsing through me and beginning with January, I scanned every word that Nana had written. Slowly, I deciphered line after line and page after page of her sometimes tiny script, enjoying Nana coming back to life through her distinctive writing style. It wasn't long before I saw her reference an upcoming trip to Europe. I reasoned that because she filled her journal with the everyday comings and goings and the mundane, there was a good chance she'd have made a notation about the lady in green if she had gotten her in England that year. I read about the lost umbrella and the trip to the shop to replace it, London's weather reports, grocery store runs, a haircut, bus stop waits, cab rides, cab drivers' personalities, and cab drivers' names. I read about treks around London on foot, treks so long that she made a trek to a shop for more comfortable shoes. There were notes about restaurants, Buckingham Palace, cafes, and trips to the theater. Oh yes, and the acquisition of a Burberry raincoat. I read about what they ate for dinner, what they thought of dinner, and what time they went to bed. Surely, if there were such thorough notes about particulars such as these, the arrival of something so lovely as Lady Sandra would make an appearance on the page. Entry after entry centered around their life in England, when suddenly I gave a little cry of joy and announced to my husband, I found it. He smiled as I explained what I'd been searching for and listened as, with tear-filled eyes, I read this line, mid-paragraph, for Tuesday, April 17th, 1984. George bought me Royal Dalton figurine for my birthday. There it was. I couldn't believe I'd found it. This small but incomprehensibly special bit of information, this glimmering link with Nana and the past, had been tucked inside these journals I'd kept so reverently in my care all these years. Charged with joy, I let my eyes wander beyond the window to rest on the snow-laden trees outside as I treasured these things in my heart. My grandfather had bought Lady Sandra for my grandmother during their spring trip to England for her 66th birthday. And now I know. I am so grateful that I had Nana all the years that I did, and I miss her more now than ever, as the passing years have revealed her to be unique and one of my life's greatest blessings. I will always cherish these things that once belonged to her. And I'm so grateful that even though she's gone, she continues to share so much with me. And that is the story of this layout. So I printed all 7 pages, which was gonna supposedly be a little journaling block somewhere, on these kind of coordinated papers, which I'm gonna tuck in the back of this page, which I made a pocket for. And I'll show you up close a little bit the pages. So I used torn paper and some stamping. I used some hand lettering with paint. That was a joy. And let's see, since I couldn't manage to string out an actual complete sentence with tidy writing, I just went for the words that actually came out okay, cut them out, and then designed the layout around it accordingly. It was frustrating. My handwriting's not good. It's kind of shaky and obnoxious. Anyway, let me get a little paintbrush out to get the dust particles off this, because I see they're gathering here. So let's see. I have little butterflies that I got out of a pack from Amazon. They come in like packs of, they come in packs of yellow and green and purple and whatever you would like. So I have several packs of those, and I just stuck them around here. And there's some subtle inking I did with stamping, I should say. Added some rhinestones, and this is Nana's book. This is my copy of the book I ordered so that I could just highlight and go to town doing what I needed to do as I read, as I do. I happen to have pictures that I gathered before many of them were tossed at that time of Nana's home. Oh, that wasn't stuck on there. And this is the bookshelf, which I was delighted to see, has the figurine here and the candlesticks that sat on her piano in the home they had before they moved into this townhome. And I don't think Nana had her piano come with her. I don't think. I want that back where it was. Wherever it was, I need to get it there better. Okay. I cut strips of paper, tore paper, inked edges, etc. This is Nana, and I've got little dust particles on this. Let's get this off of here. Nana standing in her living room. There's the shelves behind her. Ravelin Arms is on the shelf somewhere. And let's see, this strip is from Chamel's Main Character Energy. It's a branding strip that was on one of the pages. And there's some stamping here. I'll show you my stamps in a second. And this is the actual page that I did take out of the journal. And I put a little strip here to secure it. And underneath is a picture of my copy of Ravelin Arms, the journal, and her book. And here is the entry I highlighted very faintly in yellow. Her abbreviation for George, her husband, was GEO. Her abbreviation for Bot, B-O-T instead of B-O-U-G-H-T. So there's the notation. These are Imaginess, what you call them, rub-ons from a million years ago that still rubbed on. I can believe it. And then anything else that is of note, this I'll show you real quickly. Get my glasses off my face. This is the paint set I used to paint these letters, and I used this also, and I got inspired by Chamel's class called Most Magical Scrapbook. She does hand lettering using the same exact palette I've had for years and this, and I was like, you should get yours out and try it. So thank you, Chamel, for inspiring that little venture here. This is what that palette looks like. I bought this palette because of a Christina Werner video years ago, and decided I needed it. I think it's called Gonzai something, I don't know. That's what it's called. Okay, so that's this. I also use, oh, let me show you this. These are samples of sheet after sheet that I practiced on trying to get the title. So I'm not good at that, and it was exasperating, but in the end I think I succeeded. Also, this is a paper pack that my son and his wife got me for my birthday by Craftsmith that I had used some papers out of. And I have stamps. I don't know where they are right now. Where did they go? Let's see, that Matthew and his wife got me. I'm not seeing them right now, but that's okay. Anyway, that I used to make these. I use this ink for some of the stamping and this one. And let's see, anything else? Here are the stamps Matthew and his wife got me that I used that. And this one. And they also got me this one, which I'm eager to use. Good old-fashioned stamps. Used some rhinestones I'd had forever and don't know where they're from. What else did I use? Let's see. Oh, I'm going to add this too. The inside cover of that journal is this address. So that's, I assume, where they stayed on that year. Also, I have anything else? So I'm going to tuck this journaling in the back of this in the pocket I made. Oh, and let me show you this before I go. My cat is knocking at the door. I can hear him. This is Lady Sandra. And this is Nana's book. And it's fragile and it's old and it's cherished. And this is my copy. And that I got off Amazon so I could really do what I need to do when I read books. And, let's see, my father read this too at the same time I did. He read it for the second time. I read it for the first. And that is a wrap. So I hope you enjoyed this layout share and this little departure from my usual fare. I hope to make another video soon, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.